the mission to reforest the planet in 10 years through feminine leadership and empowerment just really grabbed me by the heart.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Chi Time, your conscious living show with me, Clare Dubois. And on this episode, I have for you a tree sister seeding change. Yes, Pollyanna Darling is waiting on the other line to talk to us about what's going on in the neighbourhoods around the world that women are really pulling together to make sure we have enough trees on the planet. And my goodness me, it's a hugely tall order. And what I'm interested in talking to her about is not only that, but the ripple effect of us women coming together to make sure that the reforestation of the planet happens, and to exponate, is that the word? Encourage the feminine principles to be ignited within each and every one of us. So let's get her on the other line and start having a rather juicy conversation with Pollyanna. Hi there, welcome to Chi Time.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're really welcome. I've been so looking forward to meeting you, and it was the lovely Will Gethin that introduced me to you personally. But I have been aware of the TreeSisters for quite a while now. It's part of me. And I mean, how did you get involved with TreeSisters? What happened there for you?
So that was probably I think it was in 2011, and somehow or other, a video of Clare Dubois, the founder, crossed my path, and I watched it and I just burst into tears. And it was the kind of tears that you get when your heart's touched. Like, it wasn't tears of sadness about what was going on in the world. It was like my heart saying, do this. And I lived right up on the top of a hill overlooking thousands of hectares of forest in New South Wales, in Australia at the time. And I sent her an email and I said, I'm in, what do you want? And she said, let's Skype. So we Skyped, and then I did a whole bunch of different things for a number of years for TreeSisters. But yeah, the mission to reforest the planet in 10 years through feminine leadership and empowerment just really grabbed me by the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And to know that there's something that can be done, when you learn about the catastrophes in our environmental climate at the moment, it's very easy to feel like despondent and like, well, what can I do? But then when you get together with other people and the collective, wasn't it the Dalai Lama, he said that the world was going to be saved by the Western woman. And it was like, well, how on earth are we going to do this? And then someone, as you say, Clare Dubois, which I love because, of course, her word means of the forest, isn't it? Dubois.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice. Of the wood, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have that inspiration to dare to do this. So, as you said, the collective was founded in 2010, and
Yeah.
and it's a charity around the world. I think isn't it based in Bristol, which I find interesting because you're calling in from New Zealand here, aren't you?
I'm calling from Australia.
Oh, from Australia.
TreeSisters is a UK registered charity, and it originally had headquarters in Bristol, but we're actually global. So we have team members in Trinidad and Réunion, which is a tiny little island off Madagascar, and in the US, in Australia, and so we have come together since 2010. And I guess I want to pick up on what you said about the power of coming together, because one of the things that many women say about TreeSisters is that not only are we offering hope, but that coming together ends the isolation that a lot of women feel where they are in the world, because a lot of us, I guess, feel very deeply and very strongly a sense of wanting to care for the earth. And I can speak for Australia, that's counter to current culture. Like, it can be quite isolating to deeply care for the planet and for the trees, and to want to do restoration and to find yourself surrounded by people who aren't thinking about that and who are living their lives in very different ways. And so one of the first things that coming together does is end that sense of, being a fish out of water or swimming against the current or all of those kinds of things. And in ending that isolation and encouraging one another, what we've found is that women then find their courage. So they find their courage to speak out, they find their courage to take action, they find the courage to gather other women together where they are. And that's really powerful.
I think we are regathering again, because this is the way that it's meant to be. Women are supposed to live in community with one another and support one another and encourage one another. And the Western tradition more recently has almost, I think it's actually sort of been since the witch hunts and the witch trials, where, women used to dob each other off because of the fear of their own families being savagely murdered, awful times. And that sort of seeded a seed that women couldn't trust one another. And yet we know in our souls that we want to fundamentally. Women, we're here to nurture and care and save. So it's coming back to something that is essentially our true nature.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things that people say to us is, why women? And what you're speaking about is one of the reasons it's why women. It's because we have work to do with one another. So the witch burnings, the way that Western culture is set up to sort of pit women against one another, and that history of betrayal means that, in order for us to find our voices and rise together, we need to mend that wounding that is really, throughout all of our DNA. And so part of the reason for TreeSisters is because we have this work to do as women so that we can rise together.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of Rebecca Campbell's amazing book, Rise, Sister, Rise, that is such a clarion call for women that we want to do it. And there's sisterhoods popping up all over the place. And so it is really being called for. And I'm part of a couple, and that's my go-to place where I can just say how it is for me, or I can support someone else that's having a bit of a wobble, or big up if somebody's done something amazing. That's the other thing, is where do we go when we're achieving things? Because it's almost like embarrassing when you achieve something incredible. It's like, oh, don't tell anybody, because it could embarrass you, or it might make them feel less than. It's like, no, when we support one another, we praise each other's wins. We want our women to be as strong as we can be on behalf of everybody else, so it's really exciting times, isn't it?
It is. And you're right, there are so many incredible women's movements around the world. we did a little piece on women's movements. We came up with just 10 incredible ones, just like that, really easily. So it is quite extraordinary what's happening, and I believe it is part of the reinstating of feminine consciousness in the world, which was when TreeSisters was born. Claire actually crashed her car into a tree, and in the moments after the crash, she had a sort of download of the mission of TreeSisters and what needed to happen. And one of those things, one thing was to reforest the tropics in 10 years, and another one was to reinstate feminine consciousness. And so that actually extends beyond women. Feminine consciousness is something that all human beings have, but it's been so suppressed, and the qualities of that have been so suppressed. And we've been having a really interesting conversation within TreeSisters, within our network, which is thousands of women all around the world, about what feminine nature-based leadership looks like. Like, what actually is that? What is it to lead from the feminine and from a deep connection to nature? And often the answer is, well, it sort of boils down to deep care. That part of the feminine is to really be in that place of deeply caring about things. And that to me is really fascinating, because a lot of what's going on in the world and the way that we are tackling, the ecological collapse that we're faced with, the climatic changes that we're faced with, a lot of what's taking place in the world is not necessarily coming from a place of deep care. And when you shift into that way of thinking, well, let's make what we do be about restoration. Let's make what we do be about reciprocity with nature and with the planet. Let's make what we do come from that place of deep care. Not only does it kind of shift you out of that place of fear and desperation, but it becomes something nourishing that we can really do and co-create together.
Absolutely. And just as you're saying that, I'm feeling that sense of honoring. There's a deep respect and honor for the planet that we're on, the planet that we all call home. And it shocks me that it's got this bad. How did that happen? How did that lack of respect occur? Anyway, you know, it is shocking. And when you talk about the feminine principles, and we've got the elders like Sir David Attenborough, who has clearly been rooting for the planet forever. I mean, I was brought up on his Life on Earth program.
Me too. Me too.
And to see him in such a powerful position now as being a man, he's always stood up for the planet. And this, as you say, deep care and consideration and honouring and respect. And that I think actually goes back to how one treats oneself, you know, the miracle of life, the fact that we have this body and we have this experience of being here. You know, it's such an obvious thing to say, and yet it's not always very present in our mainstream culture.
Yeah.
So things are really changing, aren't they? So, Pollyanna, sorry, did you want to say something?
I was actually thinking about the witch burnings and the result of that, because while you were speaking, I was thinking about how in essence, that sense of disconnection from nature, much of it, I'm imagining, originated in the witch burnings, because we lost in Western culture a lot of our indigenous wisdom, a lot of European and British indigenous wisdom, because we lost the midwives and the herbalists and the healers. And that feels to me like a massive severing of connection to nature and of our own sense of ourselves as nature. And so it's become possible for us to let's say something really Australian now, shit in your nest, and, you know, destroy the living system that you are a part of and that you rely on.
It just seems utter madness, doesn't it? And I think when we can step back and look at the possibility of what we can do to assist, every single one of us can do something, just because we all have choices, and that is our power, is to be conscious with as many choices as we realize that we have in the moment.
Well, and I think that women actually don't realize how much power they do have. So we have this incredible capacity to influence at a grassroots level. And, you know, women are on the sort of parent-teacher committees at schools. Women are often raising children when they're very young. You know, we influence our communities and our networks of friends. And those influences that we can have in those arenas are actually incredibly powerful. And because of the way society has treated women, you know, for the last several thousand years, which is actually the same way that the earth has been treated, we've lost this sense of our own power to influence the way things go. But it's still there. It's still there, and we still have it.
We do. And let's pick up on that. But after this track, because Pollyanna's chosen a couple of tunes for us here on She Time, and I'd like you to introduce the first one to listeners and why you've chosen this, please.
So this is by the very lovely Aileen Nareo, and it's called Whispers. And it's actually all about the trees and how they are the lungs of the earth and how we can give back to them.
Oh, that's perfect, because I want to chat a little bit about that on the other side. There's so much I want to talk with you about. It's a total thrill that you're here on She Time. Thank you so much. Let's play your track now, Whispers, and come back with you, Pollyanna Darling, after this.
Pine, I am calling to you, husband. I am singing to you, redwood. Hear
Wow,
the
what a beautiful track.
song.
Thank you so much for choosing
Hush,
that. The
bird,
Whispers
weeping
by, I can't pronounce the
willow.
name, we're going to have to say it.
Ayla Nereo.
Ayla Nereo, because I really don't like saying it wrong. So Ayla Nereo, thank you very much. And as you mentioned when you introduced this, that it sort of speaks about the trees being the lungs of the world. And very recently I found this amazing picture that is of the interior, you know, of a lung and the exterior kind of components of the tree. And I remember realizing this a while back now, in the wintertime, seeing the structure of how the trees grow in the air. And just because I'm an ex-nurse, so I've always been really interested in health. And just thinking, well, I've got this within me. How marvelous, how brilliant it is that we have a similar structure to the trees. We are so connected to the trees in so many ways. So I'd love you to sort of like tell us how passionate you are about trees. Go.
I'm so passionate about trees. I'll probably bore you to death. But
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it. Go. Yeah.
trees are completely and absolutely amazing. So they do, you know, they're kind of being seen now as a sort of semi-solution to climate change because of carbon sequestration, but they do so much more than just carbon sequestration. So just as an example, in the Amazon, there's so much water released through transpiration that there are what they call flying rivers and in the air. And there's actually more water in the air above the Amazon than there are in the rivers in the Amazon. And that water actually dictates and affects the whole world's weather system. So big forests are contributing to the global weather system. And there's some statistic that rainfall has dropped around the world 50% due to deforestation. And, you know, we're really feeling that here in Australia because we have a very poor deforestation rate and endlessly dropping rainfall and increasing temperatures. So trees are contributing to the weather. They seed rainfall. They literally comb pollution out of the air. So they remove particles of pollution and they take them down into the earth. They draw up groundwater from really deep in the earth. So if you cut all the trees down, then the rivers and the streams dry up. Some of them release aerosols that are good for human health. So that Japanese practice of forest bathing actually has its roots in, you know, scientifically proven well-being, because you're inhaling these particles that the trees are releasing. So trees are absolutely, completely and utterly amazing. And it feels like we're only now beginning to understand them, and even then not enough. So for example, trees defy gravity, so they move water up their trunks, and they don't have a pump like a heart, and people still don't know exactly how that's happening. There's some theories, but you know, they're doing this amazing thing. They're moving water up, and yeah, they're just kind of mind-blowing. And I'm sure your listeners will probably know that, you know, that in forests, trees are connected through the mycelial networks, and they communicate with each other, and they can tell when there's a plague of locusts coming, and, you know, change the way that their leaves are. And when a tree dies in the forest, it'll put all its nutrients down into that system and feed the area around it. Like they're really incredible, and we need them. We need them for our survival. So they're so amazing, and there's so much you can say about them, but we need to care about them because they are the hope for our children and grandchildren's future. Because not only do they sequester carbon, but there's other amazing things they do, and I'm going to bore you probably.
No, I'm loving this. This is just absolutely brilliant. Continue.
There's an amazing botanist and biochemist called Diana Beresford Kroger, and she lives in Canada. And if you ever get a chance to speak to her, you really must. And she's completely wonderful. And she made a beautiful film called Call of the Forest. And in that, she talks about the relationship between the world's forests and the oceans. So the oceans need iron, but the ocean doesn't produce iron. So the living organisms in the ocean require iron. And forests produce, through the leachate in their leaves, something called fulvic acid, which is a natural form of iron that's easy to uptake. And it goes into the creeks and rivers and out into the oceans, and it delivers iron to the oceans. So without the forests, we can't have healthy oceans. There's this incredibly symbiotic relationship. So, you know, I could probably go on all day about this. I'll let you get a word in edgeways.
No, this is utterly fascinating. I'm learning from you. Thank you so much. And it just shows us that it's not just the exchange of carbon and oxygen that we rely on trees for. It's so much more. They are an integral part of our planet, and therefore deforestation, it should really be an illegal act. And
Absolutely.
when we know that it's still going on, it's painful. It's like, how can this, it's like the plastic situation. Why is this still going on when it's clearly doing so much harm? Stop now. And is it maybe it takes women to be bold enough to stand up and go, stop now, like the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, who just sorted the gun law out in about 6 weeks, didn't she? It's just like, no, we're not having any of that anymore. You know, just be daring, brave and bold to change the ways of the outmoded patriarchy, really. And so therefore it's got to be women that make these changes. It's the only ones that are daring and brave enough to do so. Awesome.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you raised that, because I think one of the results of the witch burnings and the oppression of women over the last 3,000 years is that women, for good reason, became very afraid of saying no. But we're in a different time now, and I think it's becoming more and more possible for us to say, no, that's enough. Not, you know, and when that's the power of coming together, is that, you know, together we have the capacity to say collectively, no, that's enough. That's enough now. We're going to do this, you know. That's enough of that. We're going to make deforestation illegal. We're going to bring in ecocide, or we're going to create the legal rights of nature framework. We're going to reforest here and reforest there, and that's what's going to happen. I mean, we have the capacity to do that. We just need to come together.
And that's part of what you're doing. So TreeSisters Seeding Change are calling all women right now, aren't you? Can you tell us about how people can get involved with that and what you're up to?
Yes, so we're campaigning at the moment. We have so far put 4 million trees in the ground in the tropics through the generosity and love of our members. So that's member donations from women just like us. And we've got 8 amazing projects in 6 different countries. So we're planting in Nepal, Madagascar, Kenya, India, Brazil, and Cameroon. And those projects are not just reforesting, they're also protecting biodiversity. In some of them, they're protecting endangered species, they're employing local people, and they're really amazing projects that are about restoration rather than just carbon sequestration. And what we're doing this month, which launches officially on Earth Day, is calling in 10,000 more women into our network so that we can double that tree planting impact by the end of this year. So we are calling all women, and for any women that want to get involved, if you go to callingallwomen.me, M-E, you can sign up for the campaign. We've got some really wonderful speakers. Woman Stands Shining, Pat McCabe, who is an Indigenous Native American elder. She's speaking with us on Earth Day, and we have Anita Sanchez, and we're speaking to Isabella Tree, who you probably know of, who's got an amazing rewilding project in Sussex, and some more other great things that are happening as part of the campaign. So yeah, we just invite all women who want to come and join us, come and join our community, sign up with us, and let's see what we can co-create together in terms of restoration.
Yeah, Absolutely. I'm getting excited with this idea. It's like, could you like plant a tree sister in every single women's sisterhood around the planet, so that there's a representation for trees in every single women's group?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Let's put that out there then. So if you're listening or watching this and you're in a women's group, you know what to do now, don't you? Hop over to treesisters.org or callingallwomen.me. And isn't there it started to happen. There was a village over in Rajasthan where they plant 111 trees every time a female child is born, as a way of investing in her future, so that, because it used to be that women children were not very well welcomed, were they? And so
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing. So planting trees wherever you can. And you know, yeah, when I was going to say, there's a lot of directors going on about how trees are going to mess up with 5G, but we both said we weren't going to talk about that on this interview.
No, let's not talk about 5G. I was going to say, Diana Beresford Kroger, who I mentioned before, she says that if every person on the planet planted one tree a year for 6 years, we could turn this whole situation around. So that's how simple it is. You know, if you and I and everybody else put one tree in the ground a year, every year for 6 years, things would be vastly improved.
Wouldn't it?
So, you know, you can plant trees where you are, but there's other ways. You know, one of the things that we do in Tree Sisters is invite women to contribute what's theirs to contribute. So there are women who are contributing from their business. So if they have a book, they're putting a percentage of the profits to trees. There are women who are artists who are doing that, writers, and all sorts. And there's a beautiful tree sister in Melbourne, in Victoria, in Australia, who is a ceramic artist, and she makes beautiful little green ceramic hearts. And when somebody buys a heart, 40 trees go in the ground. So, and that's her way of contributing. And so there's so many ways that you can actually contribute for the trees. And we're inviting, I mean, this is what we need. We need everyone's creativity and inspiration and what's theirs to bring. And I think that's where, you know, the power that we have collectively really comes from, is from bringing forward what's ours to bring.
Oh, yeah. That is so beautiful, little green hearts. And of course, green is the foundation color of the heart chakra, and it's the place of balance between heaven and earth within us. And trees and nature balance us out, and when we're in balance and harmony, we come into a neutral space, portal, where we just connect with each other easily. I mean, it feels really simple when we put it as clearly as that. Now, how to put it into practice, and you are doing a spectacular job. Thank you so much for all that you're doing already, and the Tree Sisters too. And yeah, let's catch up with you in a little while and see how it's evolving. I'd love to have you back on the show, Pollyanna. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
And see how it goes. In the meantime, you know where to go to call up your sisters and get creative. The creativity of trees, all that juicy springtime essence. Well, it is over here in the UK. It's been a total joy speaking with you. Thank you for your wisdom, sharing, and caring.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
You're so welcome. See you next time. So I'm here with Pollyanna. This is a little extra little bit of chi time because, as she just reminded me, I didn't share with you my story of the trees. I grew up, my bedroom window was right in front of a massive oak tree. And so I grew up in the chi of the trees all my childhood. And I just thought that was normal. Of course, I wake up every morning and see this massive oak tree. And in fact, we had a tree house built up there by my dad, where we used to run away from my mum to. So I've always had a real affinity with trees. And my Qigong school is called New Forest Qigong. So the forest is always where I like to go and practice. It's where I escape to. It's sort of my home, really. And where I'm living at the moment, near Southampton Waterside, we're right on the edge of the forest, and there's a particular walk that I do very, very regularly, and there's a special tree that I lean on, and it talks to me, and I love it. And I went there the other day, and of course, because it's springtime here and everything's just bursting, and the color of the tree leaves when they come through the light, that deep bright olive green, is just such a nourishment for me. So I'm staring up at these new leaves and the canopy and the sun, and then, you know, breathing in the tree chi. And you were saying the aerosols that they release, is it? And just loving it. And then I just glanced at the ground, and I see all these pockets of that color on the ground, and there's just little fragments of it, and I'm looking at, what's this? I collect them all. Here they are.
Oh, look.
This is my little, and it's so healing. I hold this next to my belly, and it's really healing. But I was amazed because it was showing me the structure of the tree up high that we don't usually get to see. I mean, it's probably going to die, sadly, but you know, there's all the little acorns that are starting to grow, and there's the catkins, you know, the pollen, and then on some there's little berries. It's like, I didn't know this. So the tree is like showing me its fragments, but then I was like, what's all this about? And I'm going, tree, have you been hurt? Has somebody been violating you? Why has this happened? And then a dog walker came along, and he saw me picking all these up, and I'm holding them. I said, look, I don't know what's happened here. I don't understand. What? And he said, oh, it's probably mating pigeons. Really said, yeah, they can be quite vicious up there. I thought, oh, okay. And I thought, how odd. And then the tree was going, yes, I have to put up with that. You have to put, occasionally we get a bit of running pigeons happening, and the fragments fall to the ground. He said, but that's the sacrifice. And the fact that I was there on the day that these were there meant that I could pick up and just have a little shrine to my most favourite tree in the forest. This little magic. So I suspect it'll go into compost eventually, but right now, thank you for letting me share that with you.
That's beautiful.
Oh, trees are magic though, aren't they?
Yeah.
They really are. Have you got a magical tree story?
Not a particular one. I just have, I think it's really interesting that that you can form a relationship with a particular tree. You know, I've got 2 trees at the top of my driveway. They're bunya pines, and they're indigenous to this region where I live. And they're like that to me. They seem like guardians. You know, they stand there, and they're kind of like, you know, we've got this space, and they command respect as well. And then we also have a incredibly old Poinciana tree off one side of our house, and it just sort of radiates its presence, you know, and there's so many birds that come and visit there. So I think that, you know, I'm sure humans have been in intimate relationship with trees for as long as we've been here.
I agree. They are part of our home, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing your tree love with me. Tree sisters indeed. Okay, we're back in with Pollyanna Darling, and because we can't stop chatting about this, it's just too vital. And I've just been saying that though I run an events company in the New Forest, I feel that what you're doing globally is absolutely key, because it's now that this needs to occur, right?
Yeah. And the thing that I wanted to say about that was, yes, it's key that we get together globally. However, the other thing that's really important is that we come together in person, and that we build resilience in our local communities, because, you know, a lot of us are already experiencing, you know, crazy weather, climatic changes, you know, plants that won't grow anymore where you are, and terrible storms, and, you know, more floods. And in Australia, we've had the most insane heat, and we need to remake our community connections that we've lost through the kind of individualistic system of patriarchy and capitalism, so that we can cultivate resilience together. And one of the things that happens when women come together in person is that we build our resilience where we are in our communities, and that's really, really important.
Yeah, no, you are so right. So it's local, national, and international. Totally. Yeah. And we often like to get together over a cup of tea, don't we?
Yes.
Cheers. What have you got there?
Cheers. I've got turmeric tea in
Turmeric
my please don't interrupt me when I'm ignoring you cup that my children gave me.
Don't you love them? Well, we're doing this for their futures, aren't we? You know,
Exactly.
we want to be able to say we did our best for you, and we've now made something that you can carry on with. So
yeah. And
so
at this point in time where there are children all around the world saying, please do something, you know, we need to do something.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We are all in this together. Because what is it? Our house is burning. That was such a powerful speech by Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame, Our Lady in Paris, burned. It's like, do you get it yet? You know, come on, we really do need the world to wake up. And that's what's going to help with all the women gathering together to say we need to do this now, is we've got the evidence to say we need to do this now. And businesses are just going to have to sort it out. It needs to be people, planet, profit, not just profit. No.
Or even planet, people, profit.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because people are on the planet. So in order to, you know, as we keep saying that the earth will survive, and she might take millions of years to be able to neutralize the effects that have gone on, but humanity, this is our opportunity to turn it around. This is why we are here now on the planet, to work together with awareness, consciousness, and action. Let's do it.
Yes, because we are nature. We are a living expression of life and nature and the planet. That's what we are.
Of course we are.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you again. Let's just try and press pause and see what happens now. Thank you, darling.
In my heart, in my soul, in my blood, in my bones, I am a tree-loving woman. In my heart, in my soul, in my blood, in my bones, I am a tree-loving woman. In my heart, in my soul, in my blood, in my bones, I am a tree